Welcome to the Arifs. Today, we're going to track the ticking clock of a vibrant, powerful, but ultimately doomed ancient civilization. We're going to visually break down exactly how an entire bustling society went from the absolute height of its power to complete silence in just one single day. Picture this, it's the year 79 AD. Under a perfectly calm, blue Mediterranean sky, the sundial in the city center wasn't just counting time, it was ticking down toward total destruction. In a matter of hours, all the luxuries, the laughter, and the ambitions of an entire metropolitan civilization would literally be buried alive. Now, to really grasp where they stood in the world in 79 AD, let's look at what else was happening globally. Far to the east, you've got the Han dynasty at the height of its Silk Road glory, literally inventing paper. Over in the Americas, the Mayans are building these monumental cities deep in the tropical jungle. The world was in full swing, but for the wealthy Roman elite walking those cobblestone streets, Pompeii felt like the absolute center of the universe. The citizens had an incredibly short window of time left. At 6 a.m., the sun rose over luxurious villas. By 9 a.m., the morning rush was in full effect. Politicians were making speeches, high-value trades were happening in the market. Thousands of people were just walking the streets. But as we're going to see, by 1 p.m., everything changes forever. You see, these citizens lived a life of shocking extremes. For instance, medical examinations of the victims revealed they actually had remarkably perfect teeth. Why? Well, because their drinking water flowed from volcanic springs that were naturally rich in fluoride, and refined sugar was entirely unknown to them. It was kind of a natural gift from the very land that would eventually kill them. Also, Pompeii's citizens loved to express themselves. The city walls were absolutely covered in political invective, love complaints, and neighborhood gossip. It functioned exactly like an ancient version of social media. Another wildly fascinating detail is their eating habits. Most homes in the city actually lacked kitchens, mostly because cooking at home was just seen as a waste of time. Instead, everybody ate at a thermopolium. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of a fast food drive-through. They featured these long marble tables with large holes serving warm lentil soup, roast pork, and even exotic dishes like snails. It was this great equalizer where everyone from the wealthy elite to enslaved people just grabbed a quick bite. By night, the city's uncensored, hedonistic side emerged. Since Pompeii was a major port city, there was a constant influx of foreign sailors and merchants. This led to the establishment of the lupanar, a formal brothel totally legalized under Roman law. Now, the crucial point here is how on earth did they handle the massive language barriers among all these international visitors? Well, they used incredibly practical visual fresco menus painted directly on the corridor walls. Patrons literally just pointed to the images to communicate what they wanted. Okay, we absolutely cannot talk about their daily life without mentioning this shocking sanitary fact. The pristine white wool toga was the ultimate symbol of Roman status, but they were cleaned at a fuller's, an ancient laundering center. And the primary cleaning fluid? Human urine. I'm serious. Slaves would work all day trampling the clothes in large tubs of it. It was highly valued for its ammonia content and was literally collected from public restrooms around the city. To them, it wasn't disgusting at all. It was a highly lucrative bleaching business. The signs of an impending apocalypse were horrific. Deep underground, entirely out of sight, ground temperatures were rising rapidly. This caused the city's wells, which supplied fresh mountain water, to suddenly run completely dry as the underground reserves literally evaporated. Above ground, animals were panicking. Flocks of birds fled the mountain slopes in frantic waves, and rats scurried out of their nests, swarming the cobblestone streets in broad daylight. Nature was basically screaming at them. Looking at all those warning signs, you really have to ask yourself, why didn't they flee? With all these clear flashing signals that something catastrophic was unfolding, why did thousands of busy, intelligent people in Pompeii just stay put and go about their lunch? The tragic answer is a fatal linguistic and scientific flaw. The ancient Romans in 79 AD literally had no word for volcano. It simply did not exist in their vocabulary. To the people of Pompeii, Mount Vesuvius was just a peaceful, beautiful green backdrop where the finest vineyards grew. Plus, the region had experienced small earthquakes for a decade, so when the ground shook and their cups clinked on the table, they honestly just thought it was a normal Tuesday. They had zero collective memory that the mountain was actually a sleeping monster. The eruption happened in a terrifying, rapid-fire sequence. First, a deafening explosion literally shattered the peak of Vesuvius. Then, a hail of heavy pumice began raining down. In all the chaos, thousands made a fatal decision. They chose to hide indoors. They locked their doors and sheltered under tables. But as the pumice piled up outside, the roofs simply collapsed under the immense weight burying them. Soon after, the air filled with poisonous sulfur gas, turning every single breath into throat-burning torture. Just to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this explosion, Vesuvius released energy equivalent to tens of thousands of atomic bombs. It shot a giant pitch-black column of ash and rock 32 kilometers straight up into the atmosphere. It completely blotted out the sun and turned bright daylight into a terrifying, suffocating night. But the true hell didn't arrive until the early morning hours. As gravity pulled that massive ash column back down, it created a pyroclastic flow, a wave of superheated gas and ash moving at hundreds of kilometers per hour. This wave hit the city at 300 degrees Celsius. There was no slow asphyxiation for those still alive. It was immediate thermal shock. The extreme heat instantly stopped the heartbeats of anyone in its path, freezing them in their exact final positions in mere seconds. There's this profound, almost cruel irony to the disaster. The utter destruction acted as a perfect time capsule. Pompeii was entombed beneath 6 meters of ash and stone. While the rest of the world moved on, fought wars, and modernized, Pompeii was saved from the ravages of time. The ash hardened tightly around the victims' bodies, so even as their physical forms decayed over centuries, the exact shape of their final moments remained perfectly preserved as empty cavities in the hardened rock. When modern archaeologists eventually uncovered the city, they realized they could inject plaster into these empty cavities, and the result? An absolute archaeological marvel. The cast recreate the agonizing final moments of the victims with such haunting detail. You can see a protective mother tightly hugging her child, a man desperately shielding his face, even a frightened dog curled up in pain. These aren't just statues, right? They're exact frozen snapshots capturing the panic, fear, and resignation of humanity facing nature's ultimate wrath. Which brings us to our final takeaway. The story of Pompeii leaves us with this really haunting realization about human arrogance. No matter how advanced our technology becomes or how consumed we are by our daily routines, all of it can disappear without a trace in a single night. It leaves you to wonder, if nature decided to take control tomorrow, what exactly would our time capsule look like? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.